there, I'm Miss Trish from Martin Library, part of the York County Libraries, and today for our Book Bites program, we're going to discuss some titles that were nominees for the 2019-2020 Pennsylvania Young Reader's Choice Awards. You can look at all of the nominees that were put up for last year by visiting psla.org. Every year, students in schools across Pennsylvania read some of these titles and then they vote on which ones they believe are their favorites. And in April, they announce the winners. This past year's winners were selected, and they were We Don't Eat Our Classmates for grades K through 3, Saving Winslow by Sharon Creech for grades 3 through 6, Float by Laura Martin for grades 6 through 8, and Truly Devious by Maureen Johnson for grades young adult, so teens, probably more grades 9 through 12. So those were the ones that were selected as the winners. But there were some really great books that were also nominated for the award. And I'm going to share 3 of them with you today that are for grades 6 through 8. And my first one is called Greetings from Witness Protection. I'm just going to read you a little bit about what it was. The Marshals are looking for the perfect girl to join a mother, father, and son on the run from the nation's most notorious criminals. After all, the bad guys are searching for a family with 1 kid, not 2, and adding a streetwise girl who knows a little something about hiding things may be just what the Marshals need. Nikki swears she can keep the Trevor family safe, but to do so, she'll have to dodge hitmen, cyberbullies, and the specter of standardized testing, all while maintaining her Marshall-mandated B- average. As she barely balances the responsibilities of her new identity, Nikki learns that the biggest threat to her family's security might not lurk on the road from New York to North Carolina, but rather in her own past. Jake Burt's funny and heart-lifting story is also very thrilling. Readers will be on the edge of their seat. So that sounds like a pretty exciting adventure. So you might want to check out that one. Another great book that was part of the nominees for grades 6 through 8 is this one called The Parker Inheritance. And I'm going to read a little bit of the first chapter to you because it sounds like an awfully interesting title, and this might hook you. Chapter 1, Abigail Caldwell, October 17th, 2007. Abigail Caldwell stared at the letter. The letter stared back. The paper was bright, crisp, smooth, like the edges of a new book that had yet to be cracked open. The letter, with its small, black, single-spaced words and sharp edges, spoke of a great injustice. It was written by a man who did not exist, and it promised an incredible fortune to the city of Lambert, South Carolina, if its puzzle could be solved. Abigail refolded the letter and then placed it in her purse. Dusk was beginning to set, and apart from the handful of teens playing basketball, Vickers Park was empty. She sat on a bench outside of the Enoch Washington Memorial Tennis Courts. A small crew had already removed the rusted fence surrounding the courts and was now carrying over jackhammers. A large yellow backhoe loomed in the distance. Ms. Caldwell, are you sure you want us to start tonight? The chief of maintenance asked, handing her some earmuffs. We're going to have to pay overtime, and the noise alone will... I know, she said. I'll deal with any fallout tomorrow. She couldn't risk starting the operation during daylight hours. It would draw too much attention. The chief adjusted his hard hat. Which court do you want us to start with? He asked. That one, she said, pointing to the one on the left. It sat directly across from her park bench, and from what she hoped was the final clue. And it would be mighty helpful if I knew what we were looking for, he said. I agree, Odell. She rose from the bench. Maybe a chest, a crate, I don't know, but I'm sure we'll recognize it when we see it. Once the lights had been erected, the crew began jackhammering, breaking up the green tennis court into chunks. Then came the backhoe, its engine groaning through the night. Abigail stood nearby, flashlight in hand, watching as the machine scooped out pile after pile of rubble and dirt. With each dump, she reminded herself of all the clues from the letter. The photos. The money had to be here. The Chief Justice paused the backhoe after a few hours and then waved over Abigail. Sorry, Miss Caldwell, but we're not finding anything. How much deeper do you want us to go? She checked her watch. Time was passing too quickly. It would be dawn soon, and with the sunrise would come a flurry of questions and accusations. Maybe just a little deeper, she glanced at the bench. And can you have a few of your guys start jackhammering the base below there, too? He followed her eyes to where she was looking. But don't tear up the bench. It's important. He frowned. But, Miss Caldwell, the work order said we're only supposed to... Don't worry about that, she snapped. I signed the order and I'll handle any problems with the paperwork. Then she sighed. I'm sorry, it's just a lot riding on this. As he went to give new instructions to his crew, she peered into the deep, dark hole. Abigail had wagered her reputation, her job, and perhaps her overall career on a hunch. She hadn't even considered that she could be wrong. A newbie from the Lambert Trader showed up around 4 o'clock that morning, followed by more experienced reporters an hour later. And then, as the sun rose over the park's majestic oak trees, a black sedan pulled up in front of the basketball courts. Abigail was a little surprised to see the mayor had arrived in person. But then again, he was up for re-election next year. It was probably time for him to make his annual trek to the Vista Heights neighborhood. Abigail checked the small hole where the bench had been and then walked back to the larger hole. She didn't know it yet, but it didn't matter what, if anything, she discovered that morning. The mayor had already suspended her. She would be forced to resign by the end of the day. The letter would remain a mystery, its secrets hidden for 10 more years until someone came along who was brave enough, or perhaps foolish enough, to take up the challenge again. That someone was Abigail's granddaughter, and her name was Candace Miller. That's the end of chapter 1. So in this book, they are searching for something that they saw in that letter mentioned. And so she's begun digging, and we will only have to see if she can follow those clues and figure out what they're hunting for and find that item. And then my third book today, and last one, is another nominee for grades 6 through 8 from 2019-2020, called Marcus Vega Doesn't Speak Spanish. And it says, one boy's search for his father leads him to Puerto Rico. He's 6 feet tall, 180 pounds, and the owner of a premature mustache. When you look like this and you're only in 8th grade, you're both a threat and a target. After a school fight leaves Marcus facing suspension, Marcus's mom decides it's time for a change. She takes Marcus and his younger brother to Puerto Rico to spend a week with relatives they don't remember or have never met. But Marcus can't focus knowing that his father, who walked out of their lives 10 years ago, is somewhere on this island. Marcus's journey takes him all over Puerto Rico. He doesn't know if he'll ever find his father, but what he ultimately discovers changes his life. And he even learns a little bit of Spanish along the way. So perhaps you might learn a little bit of Spanish along the way too by reading this book. And again, I thought I would read a little excerpt from this book to help you perhaps see some interest in it. Chapter 1, Monster Business. Most kids clear out of the way when I walk down the hall. They're like campers in a forest who spot a grizzly and scramble up a tree to hide, or in this case, climb into a locker. I've been called the mastodon of Montgomery Middle, the Springfield skyscraper, the moving mountain, the terrible tower, you get the idea. These names bothered me in 6th grade when I was excited to start middle school and make friends, but now in 8th grade, my size has become a profit center, and business is booming. Take these 2 little kids sitting down in the back corner of the library, my office, fidgeting like I'm going to eat them or something. One has practically chewed off his fingernails, and the other one's leg won't stop bouncing. I hear them whispering. What? I say. Is it true, the kid asks, that you carried 42 chairs to the auditorium by yourself? I stare. Yes. Actually, it was only 8 chairs, but these are the kind of rumors that are good for business. Incredible. They start whispering to each other again. We're wondering if we could procure your walking services, Mr. Marcus. Don't call me that. At the start of the school year, a bunch of 6th graders confused me for a teacher while they were trying to find the auditorium. I told them they better figure out where they needed to go, or I was going to collect a tax for them for getting in the way. They ran. Soon a rumor started spreading that I was really an undercover assistant principal hired to keep kids in line. It's kind of ridiculous, but things at Montgomery often are. The rumors about me have gone from fantastical, Godzilla with a crew cut, to realistic, assistant principal. It's really annoying, but like I've said, I found a way to make it work for me. These 2 kids are here for my walking service, the crown jewel of my business. $5 a week to walk each of you to school, I say, and $5 to get you home. Your total invoice is $10 per week. Each of us? The kids seemed surprised. I could walk you halfway for half the price. They looked at each other for a moment. That's my blue plate special, I say. No, we'll take the whole service, thank you. Where do you live? I live on Maple and Vine, said one kid. The other kid chimes in with, I'm on Vine and North Cherry Hill Drive. I already walk 4 other kids who live in the Cherry Hill neighborhood, so 2 more isn't a big deal. I can't charge them more than $10 or parents will start to wonder. The way I see it, it's a win-win for everyone. I'm making some money and these kids are getting protection from bullying on their walks to and from school. I'm doing a service. People pay for bodyguards all the time. That's what I am to these kids, a big, bad bodyguard. Hey, I tell them before they run off to class, there's a deposit, $5 each. I always take a deposit for my services. It's like insurance money. They both pull out 5s and hand them to me, and then they quickly get out of my office. Most of my business transactions happen in the small cubicle located behind a shelf at the far end of the library. The school librarian lets me hang there whenever I want. I usually take a stack of books to read while I wait for my clients. In exchange for the office space, I help the librarian shelve the books. I carefully fold the cash into my pocket and pull out my business spiral from my backpack to write down the names of my new clients. I check my cell phone storage tab before I close it. I need to pick up the slack on that. I've only collected 2 cell phones today. It's just $3. Here at Montgomery, there is a 0 cell phone use during school hours. Kids are getting their phones stolen or thrown into the lunchtime garbage can by older kids. Trust me, you don't want your cell phone tossed in there. I don't even put my own garbage in there. Besides all of that, Principal Jenkins said students were spending too much time texting and using social media. Some parents cheered Principal Jenkins' decision. Others, not so much. In the end, a compromise was made. Kids could have a phone in their lockers, but were not permitted to carry them around, and they definitely could not have them in class. Around mid-September, 2 7th graders bumped into me because they were texting each other while walking to class. They tried to apologize, but I saw an opportunity. I decided to take their phones and charge them a storage fee until school got out. I let them come to my locker, send a text or 2, then return the phones until they left school. I've collected phones 127 times since school started. That's almost $200. I look at another tab in my portfolio. Garbage tax collection, year 2. Week 25 equals $2. Business is way down. I've started collecting a garbage tax last year when kids kept dumping stuff on the floor, leaving empty soda cans in the library or crumpled paper in classrooms. It became so bad, Principal Jenkins said he would give detention to any student caught littering on school grounds. And that's how the garbage tax was born. The idea came to me when I was sitting in my office and heard a couple kids chatting. I stood and peeked over the shelves to find a boy and girl had sneaked 2 sodas into the library. They finished, left the cans on a shelf, and took a few books to the circulation decks. I walked over, grabbed the evidence, and waited for them outside. The girl was surprised to see me standing there. She stepped back and tried to smile. "Hi," she said. I showed them the cans. "Know what this means?" I asked. The girl looked worried. Please don't tell, she said. My parents will kill me if I get detention. We can't pay you, the boy blurted out. How much? I said. The boy looked at the girl. 25 cents, the girl offered. 50, I said. They looked at each other again. 50 cents to save our butts from detention? How do we know we won't tell? The girl asked. Because I would have already told if I didn't think there was something I could get out of it. Fair enough, the girl said. Here you go. She shook my hand and gave me $1 for me and my friend. I took the money and threw the cans into the recycling bin. I wrote in my spiral the date I collected the tax, the reason for collecting it, and how much I got for it. After that, I started watching for litter bugs. Most kids wanted to avoid detention, so to them, 50 cents was an even trade for my silence. Recently, business had really dropped off. Hardly any kids leave trash behind now. Principal Jenkins thinks his policy is what turned the school around. The threat of detention was one reason, but paying my tax to avoid getting caught was a much bigger one. I do some stuff for free, too, because, I'm not a monster. I carry equipment to school rallies and assemblies. I move desks for teachers, and I help out the maintenance staff with stuff like moving bleachers and rolling out the big garbage bins on trash day. I like the maintenance people. They treat me like a normal kid, just helping out. But I guess I'm not a normal kid. I was born 11 pounds, 26 inches. Doesn't seem big until you consider that most babies are born like 7 or 8 pounds and 19 or 20 inches when they're born. You get the idea. I was a big infant. 97th percentile big. While most kids just stare, the only kid who never misses a chance to tell me I'm not normal is Stephen Hobart. Stephen pronounces his name like he's French. Stefan. But his family is really from Springfield, and I know for a fact he's never been to France. His mom is the head of the Parents Association. She doesn't like students who stand out for all the wrong reasons. Stephen has a crew. I've seen them pick on kids. 6th graders are especially afraid of him in a different way than they're afraid of me. They don't want to get on his bad side. He draws pictures of people he doesn't like and sneaks them into their backpacks and lockers. I caught him once putting one of his masterpieces inside a girl's backpack. At lunch later that day, the girl was crying with her friends as she showed them the drawing. I happened to see it as I walked to the lunch table. Stephen drew her like a stick figure with a big round head, bulging eyes, short hair, and a tie. Above the drawing, he wrote, "Is it a boy or a girl?" Stephen uses words like someone throwing punches, only it's nearly impossible to find the bruises. He's never been caught. I don't collect garbage tax or cell phone storage fees from Stephen. I've thought long and hard about it. Sure, he had made a monster out of me by spreading rumors and just being his terrible self, but in a way, he's responsible for my biggest source of income, keeping kids away from him. And that brings us to the end of chapter 1. So Marcus has started a little bit of a business for himself collecting money, but he's also a little bit of a bully in a way doing that, isn't he? Even though he thinks he's protecting the kids from the bigger bully. So that might be a really excellent read that you might enjoy. So those are our 3 books for today. Marcus Doesn't Speak Spanish, Marcus Vega, The Parker Inheritance, and Greetings from Witness Protection. So those are some that you might want to check out. And you can check out the other listed titles for the nominees for 2019-2020 on the Pennsylvania School Library Association's website under the Young Reader's Choice Awards. Again, psla.org. And to look for these titles in our catalog, you can always go to yorklibraries.org. And some of the books we have in physical copies like I read from, but some of them we also have in our electronic ebook catalog through Access 360 or Hoopla. And you can borrow those right from home without even coming into the library. So check them out. Some of them also are in audiobook form, so if you'd rather listen than read it yourself with the physical book, that's an option as well. See you soon for our next episode of Book Bites.